I like this one. It's called my little scum test. Let's choose somebody from the audience. How about you be a champion for me? You don't want to do it? Come on. All you got to do is real simple. Hey, nice thing about it is you don't have to do any public speaking. That's awesome. Yeah, it's even better. Let's do this. Oops. Now let's, got more water? I think that's plenty.
Right here.
You got some more water?
Remember
Oh, thank you. Thank you, hon. That's perfect. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I'm going to show you liquid sun. So what we're going to do, hey, do we have another clear, Mark? Where's Mark? Hey, Mark, do you have another container? Do we have another plastic container? Yeah, let's do this twice. Let's see how good the canola does. Okay. Okay, guys, so I grabbed this chunk of right by the edge of that field, that border. Okay, so everybody knows. Everybody with me? I grabbed this chunk right by the border where there's got grass all the time on it, okay? You ready? This is what I want you to do. What we're going to do, get your cameras zoomed on this. What I want you to do is I want you to dunk this soil into there, this chunk of soil, and I want you to just absolutely try and wash all the soil away from the roots, and do it vigorously. I mean vigorously. What we're going to show with this demonstration, I'm going to show you liquid sun. What is liquid sun? Converting light energy, photons, and the plants use photosynthesis and create sugars, carbon molecules, hundreds of molecules that are leaked into the soil, acids and all these to feed the microbes. Why the covers are so critical. Corn does it, soybean, every plant does this. Ready? Mm-hmm. Go ahead. You're doing a good job. Go like this. Okay, let's pull it out. Let's see how it did. Beautiful. Good job. Do you see that white foamy material? Mm-hmm. I took it to the lab. Had 118 parts per million carbon, 18 parts of nitrogen. Passes around. I want you to look at liquid sun. Not only is liquid sun some of the biotic glues that are created by biology. That's what I want on my farm. The more I convert sun into liquid sun, the more the microbial biomass, the more my soils stay warmer in the spring. It's called feed the elephant. In an acre on a healthy soil, a good soil should weigh 2,500 pounds like a cow and calf. But in real healthy soils, it can weigh like an elephant, about 10,000 pounds of microbes and microbial biomass. So when you're driving out in the field, are you feeding your elephant? Feed the elephant. And then you don't have to buy fertilizer and chemicals as much. Look at the liquid sun. Covers are not optional. They're not. You can make it optional in your mind. But that's not the way the soil works. It's got to be fed every day, guys. How many of you would like to go the whole winter without being fed? You know, another thing I want to teach you, yeah, some of us can go without some food. But the soil's alive. The soil is alive. Many of us don't believe that. It is alive. Once your paradigm shifts and it's alive, you've got to feed the elephant every day, your whole farming practices change. And the ones that stick to it, they understand. And they're committed and they want freedom. And their yields are substantial. Guess who's the corn champion in North Carolina? Russell Hedrick. Guess what that young kid yield was? 454. 454 bushels with 40% less nitrogen. And you know what? His soils suck comparing to here. Those are old Appalachian soils, red. You know what makes that kid so good? He never went to college. He didn't go to ag school. Diesel mechanic, fireman. You know what else makes him so good? He does research plots every year. He calibrates his soils all the time. He's got plots all the time. He's a farmer scientist. I told Russell, please do not put your field into yield contests. I said, it's just going to make farmers think it's all about yield. Guess what? I ate crow and I put salt on it. You know what he proved? No-till works. Oh, we think that no-till's a problem here. It's all over the country. Covers work. And the third thing he proved, the Haney soil test works. Those things he proved because he was one of the highest yielders. And guess what? Do you think that they wanted to give him the award? NC State and some of them were pissed off. So what he did, he proved, and guess what? Some of our own regenerative farmers were upset because he still uses fertilizer. He proved no-till works, covers work, Haney test works. Great yield, and his county average is 100 bushel. His, on his regular fields, are 250 with 50 units of N. Can we do this? It all depends on you. How committed are you? I see very few committed producers. Very few are committed to stick on. Anything else we need to show real quick?
I'll make a shameless plug. Russell
Yeah.
Hedrick will be in Minnesota 2 days next week at the
Yep.
Soil Health School. So if
Yep.
anybody's interested in that,
When,
contact him.
please go see him. I've never seen anybody manage nutrients as good as he does. He is brilliant. Oh, by the way, he uses biologicals, reduced fertilizers, and his timing is immaculate. Changed his whole, the way he fertilizes. Getting away from putting on the top, he uses liquids and biologicals and getting phenomenal yields because he understands that the microbes are alive and they don't want the salts. Chemical fertilizer is a salt. If I bathed you in salt, you die. Careful with your salts. So we got to remember that. Now, this last one, let's see how good our canola does for giving liquid sun. Stephanie, do we want to choose somebody else?
You absolutely choose somebody else. Yeah.
How, let me see. How about you? Want to come? Come here, buddy.
You know, so far we talked, most of what we're talking about is crops. And we, you know, the importance
How many
of
somebody?
animals.
Oh, animals are,
When we get into pastures, how do we do some, most of our pastures up here are somewhat wooded.
yeah, mine are the same. Mine are the same.
How do we control, you know, I don't like to use chemicals either, but how do we control weed problems and stuff without chemicals?
I have an answer for that. As an old agronomist, you know what it took me a long time to get over with? Weeds. They're not, you know what I've learned about weeds?
316.
You know what they really are? Forbs. This is the best definition I've ever heard of a weed. It was from a guy from Costa Rica. Must have been a hippie. Must have been inhaling cover crops. I don't know. Best definition, he says, a weed is a plant we still do not understand its function. All of God's creation is good. Every plant serves a purpose. You know what weeds are? Indicators. They're also healers. They're healers. They're telling me about your soil. If you have a weed problem, you're either tilling too much, over fertilizing, and overgrazing.
It's an imbalance, right?
It's an imbalance. It's trying to fix it. Oh, by the way, I never did explain why tillage is so destructive. Real quick. Do you know why tillage is so destructive? When you run that disc and you bring oxygen into that soil, You wake up bacteria called R strategist. What does it mean? Rapid metabolic rate. They start to consume the organic matter and the glues. Why do they do that? As a protective mechanism. I'm getting disturbed. And then when it releases, when the microbes die, they release nitrogen into the system. Perfect for the weeds. And the weeds are the healers. It's nature's way how to heal itself so that it doesn't have erosion.
But if I left them thistles growing in their skull,
Guess what?
I would never have any pasture.
That's why here I have sheep and cattle in my system, because if one likes the other, there's weeds that I thought the cows can't eat. It's not true. They'll eat more than you think. And guess what? Selectivity. That's why I like to group my cows and my sheep tight. Give you a good example. I had a daughter that went in the military, a lieutenant. In boot camp, you know what they did? You have 30 minutes to eat. And if you hate liver, guess what? You'll eat it because you're starving. It's how you move those animals that you don't be selective. You know what some of the best grazers in the world say about us in the United States? We spend 80% of our time on the lower 20% of our herd. The guys in Mexico spend 80% of the time on the top 20% of the herd. In other words, you have animals that adapt to your system. Epigenetics. We don't run a bread and breakfast. These animals need to work. And they need to be able to match your system, even with the weeds. I have guys that have, which one in Minnesota, Cliff? What weed do they eat over there? Is it the ironweed? What was it, that big tall weeds they're eating?
I don't know for sure.
But Cliff has a great photo, ragweed, giant ragweed, and they're not supposed to eat it. Love it. Besides, weeds have a higher nutrient density than alfalfa does. Careful what you call one plant good or bad. The moment you do that, you're lost. All serve good. We just don't know. Now, if you have those weed problems, you created them. I've done it in my own pastures too.
How did I create them?
The way you didn't move frequently, you didn't group them up frequently. It's how you created the system. It'll shift on you. Here's what I'm saying real quick. Grass systems have a balance of fungal to bacteria. If I start getting too woody and I start having shrub, I'm not doing enough grazing impact. I can shift that with the cow. More manure, more urine, more stomping on them. I can use the cattle. There's nothing wrong with using the brush hog too. Use both tools you can use. You've got tools. You're in control. But please understand, what we call a weed may not be a correct way of thinking.
Weed is only a plant.
It's only a plant. Yeah. So it's the way we think about weeds. Oh, okay. How many wildlife biologists do we have here? Are we winning the battle with weeds in areas in rangeland? We are getting our butt kicked.
What do you do for buckthorn?
Buckthorn. Hey, I got my pernicious weeds too.
Goats, I suppose.
Goats. I love goats. And goats bring in $6 a pound. I love goats. In fact, I want goats. I can't afford them now.
So, if you're growing potatoes, how do you get that ground ready for potatoes?
You know what I do with potatoes? If I grow a cover crop and I intercrop into my potatoes, guess what? I'm leaking different chemical messengers like Austin winter pea. I have a potato grower in Colorado that grows Austin winter peas with his potatoes.
But how do you get rid of the quackgrass there then?
It'll shift on its own if you start bringing more fungal community. Stop the tillage, over fertilizing, more carbon, more fungal community, the plant community shifts.
But the potatoes have to come later in rotation then.
They have to. It's how you rotate and how you think of the system. You ready? Let's see if we can do the same thing. Let's see how good canola is for bringing liquid sun. Not all plants are the same, by the way. That's why I love Sudan grass as one of my covers, because it leaks copious amounts of carbon into the system. Ready? Go. You're doing a great job. Excellent. Now you can pull it out. Oh, look at this. Canola is leaking liquid sun. Every plant does this. Look at that. So what's the mantra of this hour that I've been with you guys? Living root 24/7. And the more you can have diversity, guys, the more your system will change. Careful with your chemicals, careful with your fertilizers, and careful with your seed coating. One more thing I'll say before. Dr. David Johnson, how many know of Dr. David Johnson? Anybody heard of him? YouTube University, watch him. Okay, when plants are this at an early stage, when plants are this big, his research showed when plants are this big, his research showed nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, organic matter had nothing to do with the health of the plant when plants are this big. Why is that? Anybody? When they're that big, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, organic matter had nothing statistically different between them. Showed no difference. But you know what did? Fungal to bacteria ratio. Why is that, class? Why is fungal to bacteria so important? The plant wants to do that relation first. It don't care about nitrogen. It does not care about phosphorus. Does not care about potassium. And does not care about organic matter. But it cares about fungal to bacteria when plants are starting your corn, your soybean, want fungal to bacteria ratio first. Why? Can I get your dessert until you answer?
Fungi extend the root system farther into the soil.
Relationship.
Using less carbon.
You got it. They want to build so they can get, once they build that relationship, then they can get the nitrogen, then they can get the phosphorus, then they get the potassium, and then they can get the organic matter. Please understand that association is incredible. That's why my regenerative farmers do not buy seed coating on their soy or their corn. And it's hard to find it because they make association right away. You know what some of the top fertilizer we're going to? Vermiculture, earthworm poop. Making your own fertilizer and inject it into the furrows. That's what Russell's doing. That's what some of the top producers are doing. Make your own fertilizer. But I warn you, not many producers have the technicality or the technical skills. You have to be a biologist. It's not easy to make great vermiculture. We can talk about that later. Any comments? Yeah, buts. Before we go in, take your break. Yes, sir.
On the grazing, what are your stock densities? Like 1 million pounds an acre, isn't it?
Depending. Here's what I've learned. Stock densities change. One thing I used to think that you had to do that all the time. You don't. One time you do it a year. Mob them up tight. Massage that soil. You're going to see the effect for a year or so. You don't have to do it all the time. But if you have weed pressures and that, group them up tight. Group them up. Use them as a tool. So I run my sheep. When I need to group them up tight, I group them up tight. When I want to run my cattle and I want to massage that soil and get manure and urine, so I have a pie here and a pie here, and I got a urine patch, I'm feeding microbes. Feed the micro herd. If they're not happy, if mama's not happy, nobody's happy, right? That's right. Same thing with the microbes, guys. They dominate. They are the nutrient cycle, and they make the water cycle. Let's take a break.
How do you know when to move them?
Yeah, they even have a dummy switch.
Take half.
Take half, yeah. And there's another switch. They also have a dummy switch. Cows go, move me. You'll hear them mooing at the end. And guess what? By the time you go over there, you overgrazed.
But if you don't overgraze, how are you going to get rid of them weeds?
Sometimes you have to do it. It's okay. An occasional disturbance is not bad. But all the time, If you've driven across this country, what do you see? Everything's overgrazed. Everything's overgrazed. I traveled this place. I've been in every state. Overgrazed, overtilled.
Well, we can't till our pastures because there's too many trees.
Oh, I got trees too. But I'm going to natives now. That's another thing we'll talk about later. Any comments, questions before we go have a break? Good, guys. Congratulations. Give them a break. Thank you, man, for doing that. You guys are awesome.